going to Camp Randall, baby, and your little nameplate has our feelings. You're wearing them on your sleeve. Jumping around intensifies. Wisconsin went 7-6 last year, 4-5 in conference play. They had frustrating losses to Washington State, to Illinois, to Michigan State, to Iowa, to Minnesota. So you go, Mitch, how on earth are you about to sell me Wisconsin? Well, buckle up, friends. Luke Fickell's in town. It's his first year coming over from Cincinnati, and he brings Phil Longo, who's a friend of the program. Follow us over on our social media. You should too, at 3
What's
Tech
going on,
Pod.
Coach Phil?
He comes over from North Carolina, where he ran one of the most prolific passing offenses in the country last year. Wisconsin, this isn't your dad's Wisconsin team. They're going to run the ball, sure, but this is going to be an air raid offense. And Wisconsin plans on chucking the ball all over the yard. They're bringing Tanner Mordecai in from SMU. He transfers in for his final season of eligibility. And then, oh, by the way, you're bringing Mike Tressel, the defensive coordinator from Cincinnati, over to Wisconsin as well. So some staff continuity under Fickell and a really fun offensive mind in that coaching room. For me, that's how we get some exciting rumblings going on in Camp Randall. Told you about Mordecai, electric arm. He has really good legs. If you saw one of our, I guess, Trey, it was the video that you put up on Instagram for the top 5 quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Tanner Mordecai is one of those guys. One of those highlight clips that you showed was him just breaking away, using his legs to run down the seam to score a touchdown. Of course, Braylon Allen, we might have buried the lead there. One of the best running backs in the country. Had almost 1,300 yards a season ago, 11 touchdowns, averaged 103 yards per game. The wide receivers, they've got some interesting guys coming in. Chimere Dike is the incumbent starter. He was a Badger last year, but you also add CJ Williams and Will Pauling, Pauling's from Cincinnati. Williams is from USC. That forms a really good trio, I think, to start your air raid offense with. The offensive line, shocker, guys, they're going to be good. Left tackle Jack Nelson is the leader there. You got Jake Renfro at center. He's transferring in from Cincinnati as well. So you've got an offensive line that's going to be really good. You're going to be able to run the ball. You have a proven gunslinger at quarterback and really good weapons out wide. Plus, if you want to use the tight end, Wisconsin always has a couple of guys in that room. I think this offense is going to be a lot of fun. So what about the defense? The defense is replacing their leader in Keanu Benton from last season, defensive tackle. So I think for Wisconsin, you need to make sure you can stop the run first and foremost this year. We've talked about running backs in this Big Ten. You're going to have to do that, defend the run, if you're going to be elite this year. It's a veteran group, though. You've got edges Isaiah Mullen, Rodis Johnson, and James Thompson Jr. Collectively, they racked up 14 tackles for loss last year. They were 9th in rush defense last year and 38th in sacks. They're bringing back a lot of production other than Keanu Benton, so I think you tick that box off. The linebackers, another very veteran group. You bring back 3 of your team's top tacklers to man those positions this year. So stopping the run, some pass coverage underneath. I think you're starting to check some of those boxes. For me, the weakness of this team will be in the secondary. Jason Mitri comes over from Boston College. I don't even know if any of the Screaming Eagles secondary actually stayed at Chestnut Hill. It seems like they all transferred out after last season. But you add a boost of talent there. The secondary, though, loses nearly all of their production. So if there is a weakness on this Wisconsin team, they might be able to throw the ball. Can they stop the pass as well? They're going to be really good in the trenches. And to me, that's where winning football is built. So I think they have that advantage. For me, guys, surprisingly, their ceiling is 11-1. I'm not going to pick them to go 11-1. I think 10-2, 9-3 is more realistic. But Trey, you're a believer in Wisconsin as well. I'm not high on anything right now. Tell me, back me up a little bit here. Where am I correct? Am I wrong about anything as I read this?
Man, we've laid out the case before on this show. We've talked about in our quarterback breakdown, Garrett and I ranked Tanner Mordecai as our number 1 quarterback in the Big Ten going into this season. And look, will he be number 1 at the end of the year? That remains to be seen. There are a couple guys, Drew Aller, Kyle McCord, could definitely show that they're the real deal and be the undisputed number 1 quarterback in the Big Ten. But you cannot argue that Tanner Mordecai has shown the most on the field in his career of any quarterback in the Big Ten. That's just an undisputed fact at this point. He has thrown for over 7,000 yards in his career. He's done it in an offense that is extremely similar to this one that Phil Longo is going to bring to Wisconsin at SMU and at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley. And look, he has weapons around him that have run similar offenses as well. It's not like they're just going to try to fit a bunch of square pegs into this round hole of the air raid offense. They brought in Bryson Green from Oklahoma State. They brought in CJ Williams from USC, guys that know these route trees, guys that know, look, it's not going to be a complete one-to-one transition. There's obviously going to be a small learning curve, but they brought in guys to run this offense. They said when they came over, when they hired Phil Longo as the offensive coordinator, when Luke Fickell made that decision, which I think I said Garrett Riley was the number one coordinator hire of the offseason. I think this is number two, right behind that. They said, they had a choice. They could say, we're going to, punt a year and we're going to build this, from the ground up. We're going to strip it down to the studs and transition. It's a very hard transition from the power running game to the air raid. But they didn't do that. They said, we're going to go to the transfer portal. We're going to get guys that have run the similar system so we can hit the ground running. And I think that's what they're going to do. And they're always going to be physical on defense. I love what Cincinnati ran at what they ran at Cincinnati under Mike Tressel and under Luke Fickell. I think Luke Fickell is a defensive minded coach that he's going to take care of that and make sure that quality is up there. And the defense wasn't exactly, a huge problem last year. They were stuffing the run. They were competing in the pass coverage. I agree they lost a lot of production there, but, defense is not typically going to be a problem for Wisconsin. And there's not a lot of offenses on that schedule other than Ohio State that really scare you. So the ingredients are all here. Luke Fickell is a fantastic coach. I really think Wisconsin, I am extremely high on the Badgers to the point that win total at 6.5, might have to lay some coin on that.
Yeah.
Before the season starts, because that looks like something that, maybe it's a situation where Vegas knows something that we don't, but that looks like a pretty enticing line there at 6.5.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right, Trey. I think that this is a really good team that's heading in the right direction. I do personally have them at 11-1. I know that's a little bit optimistic, but I think that they're going to make the transition. But let's kind of go with the worst case scenario. Let's try to be somewhat consistent here. It's a brand new head coach, brand new offensive coordinator. It's a whole new staff. You've got a brand new quarterback coming in there. Really, the only thing you're bringing back in terms of real offensive production is going to be, Braylon Allen, in terms of guys who I think we can say are going to take them to the top. And
legit Heisman contender.
Yeah, not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. But, when you talk about Braylon Allen, you also have to put him in the context of his conference, right? You've got, Blake Corum, you've got Donovan Edwards, you got Nick Singleton, you've got loads of these guys across that can run. What's the worst case for Wisconsin, right? If this is all falling apart, if this doesn't quite jive, if Washington State proves to be a little harder off the front end than we maybe expect, and they don't get off to a hot start, what's kind of our worst case scenario? What will be going wrong? What do we look for there?
For me, I think the floor is somewhere around 8-4. I think if you're talking worst case scenario, to me, that means, Washington State, that's a road trip that they're not ready for, and something weird happens on the Palouse. Iowa's defense is just too much, and they shut down that air raid offense. I think that's a legit possibility. Ohio State comes in and, just wrecks shop in Madison on Halloween weekend, and they drop another one somewhere, whether that at Minnesota, at Illinois, one of these other just strong other contenders in the Big Ten West. So, but other than those games, and they get a lot of those at home, right? They go to Washington State, they go to Illinois, but they get Ohio State at home. I think that could be some weird magic at Camp Randall. I'm looking forward to that game on Halloween weekend. They get, Iowa at home as well. So I don't know. Mitch, what do you think? 8-4 feels like a solid floor to me if everything struggles to adjust.
I agree. I think it's 8-4. I think, going to Illinois will not be easy. That should be, like we said, a fun Iowa team that comes to town. Hey, listen, the Palouse is always ripe for weirdness, and we are talking the Shadow Realm after all. So,
Yes.
it's not out of the realm of the possibilities. The models are telling us to be aware of that week 2 trip to Washington State. But I agree. I think absolutely worst case scenario, it's 7-5. But this is not a terribly difficult schedule. I think you have to squint to get there. I think 8-4 for me is still like, okay, I feel like I'm having to concede on various areas to get them to 8-4.
They're
This
losing
would
to a
be
couple teams that I think they're definitively better than if
right.
they get to 8-4.
Exactly. A couple of games where maybe you're playing down to your competition. This will be my representative out of the Big Ten West. I think Wisconsin makes it to Indianapolis to play Penn State. I'm very, very high on the Badgers this year, which, hey, would make for a fun matchup. I think it would give the Big Ten West a legit chance to win a conference championship game. And it would be a new matchup that we haven't seen in, well, I think ever in Indianapolis.
Gracious, how about